All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the board public meeting of Thursday, July 22nd, 2021. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Mrs. Burns, roll call, please.
Mr. Parentano?
Present.
Mr. Allen?
Present.
Mrs. Bowman?
Here.
Ms. Boyle? Here. Mrs. Hallenbeck?
Present.
Mr. Kovitz?
Here.
Mr. Marrington?
Here.
Mr. Cirillo?
Here.
And Mr. Sullivan? Present. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mrs. Burns. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our executive session statement. The board met in executive session this evening prior to this meeting to discuss matters of employment, issues related to labor relations, the purchase or lease of real property, matters related to litigation, and matters related to school safety and security. In addition, on June 24th, 2021 and July 13th, 2021, the board met in executive session to discuss personnel matters. Brings us to our superintendent report. Dr. McGee.
Thank you, Mr. Parentano. 3 discussions in the superintendent report. One discussion and two presentations. After I review the health and safety plan, which is in the back of the room for those of you who may not have it, it's also up on our website and also been mailed out to the parent in our Neshaminy app for the community as well. After that, Ms. Burkhalter will present our learning loss plan using our federal stimulus money, and then we'll have a presentation on the draft diagram of our new elementary school on the the Maple Point site. So our present health and safety plan, it is a template required by the Pennsylvania Department of Education that this board has to pass before the end of July. It was designed in late June and early July by the Bucks County Department of Health, the superintendents of Bucks County, and the leaders of the 3 vocational schools in Bucks County. And at that time, if you recall, the end of June and early July, the incident rate in the county was a little bit less than it is now. It was single digits. So since that time, the CDC has come out with a recommendation. The American Association of Pediatricians has come out with a recommendation. And just yesterday, CHOP Policy Lab came out with a list of what to do for parents, etc. So there's all types of things coming out. One thing the CDC was clear on was that we have to get kids back to school, and that one size doesn't fit all, and we should look at our local circumstances in determining what's best for our community. So that was our intent, and this is where we are as of today, based on the design in late June and early July. Our friends to the north in Council Rock have passed something very similar, to the south in Bristol Township as well, and I believe the Central Bucks is about to do the same next week like we are. If you think back to last year, no one understood what was going on. And in an abundance of caution, before we all knew, we did the most restrictive thing. And in September, we didn't bring kids back to school except for one day. And then finally in October, we brought kids back to school 2 days a week and left them home for 3. We had hoped to bring kids back to school, all of them back in November. We delayed that a month and only brought the elementary kids back in 4 days at the end of November. All the way to March, and we're able to get the elementary kids in 5 days a week and the middle school kids in 3 days a week. And then finally, after spring break, the date escapes me, but somewhere early April, we were able to say that we were able to offer all kids every day the week, every day of the week. So the approach to last year, not knowing, not having a whole lot of research, not having ways to treat the virus, was to do the extreme cautious thing because we didn't know. In hindsight, the incident rate in the county and in the state was lowest in September, and then October, and then November. So we actually kept kids home when it was probably the virus was not so much around. And then we were successful in bringing kids back while the virus was more prevalent in the area. So this year's approach is the opposite. Let's get kids back into school as safely with the least resistant approach possible. Now, what least resistant is by September 1st, we don't know yet. So this plan was made 3 weeks ago. As that changes, as clearly it has, the incident rate was single digits when we made the plan. Last week it was 14 out of 100,000. Next week I'm sure we're going to be bigger than that. All right, so we're going to proceed as we move along the way. What I didn't explain well in my email, and I realized that after the Zoom, is that the county and the superintendents will add things along the way to increase safety. So if things aren't where they are now, or where they are now since the plan was made 3 weeks ago, we could add masks back at a particular level, at a particular location, for a particular period of time, if that's the safest thing to do. We could add distancing. So presently the plan is to put kids back in the lunchroom like it was in September 2019. If the medical experts say that's not a good idea, then we'll send them back to the classrooms and go through that process to spread them out at lunch. Presently, we've brought everything back into the classrooms. We're in the process of doing it. All those great tables, the rugs, all the learning centers, and hope to do instruction as we did in the past. We might have to, if recommended, is to pull that out again and spread the kids out in the classroom as far as possible without that good stuff in there. And if things go the worst we can think, we might have to reduce attendance on a given day to be able to space them out more. So the approach is exactly the opposite of last year. All right, let's get them in school and see how we can do it safely based on what's going on in our local area. All right, so this health and safety plan presently looks a lot like September of 2019, the plan for school. And I'll go through some of the highlights for those that aren't familiar with it. Basically, masks will be optional. It's clear there are other recommendations on that, but based on the incident rate at the county at the time we developed it, that was the best advice from the Department of Health. Whether that's how we open school or not, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like 4 weeks when this board meets again, or 5 or 6 weeks when we start school. Physical distancing in the classroom and the building will be as it was in September 2019. That's what we're going to plan to do. We learned a lot about hand washing and etiquette last year. We're going to continue that. Believe it or not, Neshaminy did not buy tissues and hand sanitizer and all those good stuff for our teachers and students for the longest time. Those days are over. We're going to purchase tissues. They're going to be hand sanitizer at every doorway, throughout the hallways, etc. Ventilation and cleaning. We're going to continue cleaning. If you recall, that was our biggest concern prior. Surfaces. We've learned through research it's a concern, but that's not necessarily the biggest concern. And then early last year, in August, it might have been July, a year ago, this board chose to engineer bipolar ionization in each of our buildings and move with that, and got it installed in December and January. So we were the first in the area, and others are following along. So our system within our schools, I won't say it cleans the air. If I understand it, it makes those droplets heavier and they drop faster. Did I get that right, guys? Thank you. So another thing that's different is last year, the district, basically Mr. Meehan, Ms. Burkhalter, and Mr. Devlin were deputized, for lack of a better word, by the Department of Health. And they did contact tracing in Neshaminy to take the burden off the Department of Health during school time, so the Department of Health could work on other things. They issued isolation letters to kids who were positive and staff who were positive. They quarantined kids based on the Department of Health's procedures, and they did contact tracing. Then we notified people next to children in classrooms, in buildings, and on buses. That was done because that was the procedure set in place by the Bucks County Department of Health. So, for example, I'm trying to pick a communicable disease, meningitis. If a meningitis case comes to Neshaminy, there are particular procedures set by the Department of Health for Neshaminy to follow. Whether you notify a class, whether you notify a building, whether you do nothing is up to the Bucks County Department of Health. So the Department of Health's position at the moment is they are not going to isolate students or people who are positive. They are not going to quarantine people who are close contacts, and they are not going to contact trace. So that leaves Neshaminy in a position that we have not been deputized to do that. So when you remove a kid from school for 14 days, there has to be a cause. So if I wanted to suspend a student from school for 14 days, I just can't do it. You can suspend them for 3 days. After day 4, you have to have a due process hearing and explain how their rights are being taken care of. Without the support of the local Department of Health, there would be not a whole lot of support for why that child would be excluded from school for that extended period of time. So the conditions in the community have changed as far as our direction from the Bucks County Department of Health. So that seems to be another one of the issues. Now, whether that stays there at the beginning of school or throughout school, I don't have any idea, but that is their present position. So that's where we are. It's a working document. If we were to go through the logbook and notebook from last year, where we were in July was not where we were in September. And where we were in September was not where we were in June. So this is our best effort of 3 weeks ago based on the conditions. And the goal is to get kids back to school and add things along the way. All right. So that is the recommendation and the template required from the state. The board will meet again on August 17th, and if things change, we will bring additional recommendations. Between the 17th and the start of school, as the superintendent, I'm allowed to change things in the board's absence until the board can convene again. And just like we did last year, we will maneuver and adapt and adjust to this virus to make sure we do the best for Neshaminy kids. I think we did well last year, a community, a board, students, staff, and this is going to be a different situation, but we, again, will do well. So that's what we have now. Obviously, we know the masking issue is the biggest issue out there because the recommendations from the CDC and various other associations came out after the design was made, and we just don't change that quickly to get things done. But whether it changes or not has yet to be seen. So questions from the board on that piece?
No, I think the board has discussed it in detail from your emails that you've sent, and we've reviewed them in executive session, and we feel very confident with the plan that you've outlined and the fact that, like last year's plan, as needed, it will be amended. So I think we're pretty confident on where we're at this particular time. So thank you. And does anyone else have a question for a superintendent? Seeing none, move on to our next item, please.
At this point, Michelle Burkhalter will present our learning loss plan for the next several school years to assist students and their parents in catching up as to where we, as a nation, may not have done our best last year for instruction.
Good evening. This evening, I'm going to present a summary of the presentation that was presented on Tuesday evening. The entire presentation is also on board docs under the Educational Development Committee meeting. Since spring of 2020, due to the pandemic, public schools received 3 grants. We've already received ESSER 1 and ESSER 2. ESSER is specific to elementary and secondary school relief funds. We're going to present tonight the specific ESSER 3, which is actually now named ARP ESSER. The American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 provides emergency funds to support the long-term work of educational recovery from the impact of COVID-19. This is the 3rd grant that has been released. Specifically, this grant requires the district to do 2 things. One is to identify specific amount of funds for the learning loss that may have occurred over the last year and a half or 18 months. 20% of the funds that we receive have to be spent towards the learning loss. In addition to that, there'll be additional funds up to 80% that can be funded for other areas. I will review options throughout this presentation. Throughout the past year, we received feedback from staff, students, and parents to our administration team. We reviewed that feedback, and due to the difficult times, not only academically but emotionally, we've reviewed the necessary steps to move forward. We've identified 2 targeted areas to use the funds under the learning loss option. The first is to target the learning loss and identify students with the greatest needs at the elementary level. We're going to do that by recommending the MTSS intervention specialist. In addition to that, we're going to focus on the instructional best practices as we academically transition to a full, hopefully in-person year of education, while also supporting the social and emotional needs K through 12. Instructional learning coaches will be recommended to cover this area. Of the 2 focus areas, the first is the MTSS intervention specialist. We're looking to support 6 intervention specialists to address student learning loss through the multi-tiered system of supports framework. This will be delivered in the kindergarten through 5th grade environment, all of our elementary schools, and the 3 middle schools with 5th grade. Each intervention specialist will be replaced by a classroom long-term substitute teacher, and that will be grant funded. The MTSS intervention specialist will support each building through providing intervention. They'll model, they'll support the tiered identification through diagnostic testing, academically, behaviorally, and we're going to be very specific with attendance support. Students are going to be transitioning back. Some of our students were virtual all year, some were hybrid, and some did return. Our goal is to have all students return. The second area of focus is the instructional learning coaches. We would like to support 4 instructional learning coaches, K through 12, to provide ongoing professional development in the following areas. The instructional best practices in the classroom. Although we had a lot of technology use over the past year, that is not going to go away, but we need to be able to come back to the classroom environment and look at all best practices. The social and emotional learning needs of all students, and then again, that positive support learning environment that is equitable to all. They will also have the ability to support the multi-tiered system of support. As we look at the costs for the expenses for both targeted areas, the 20% requires us to look at $1.4 million. The salaries and benefits for the long-term substitutes for the instructional learning coaches that are proposed, as well as the intervention specialist proposed, would cost the district, through this grant, $1.7 million. That is 24.7% of the grant allotted to our district. The remaining grant funds, $5.2 million, would then be used for the additional areas identified in the grant. The 80% of the ESSER grants can be used for the following areas: the safe and in-person schooling and returning all services, facilities and ground updates, social and emotional learning, staff recruitment and support, systematic equity, and then looking at our family and community partnerships. The 2 focus areas I've already reviewed, from the intervention specialist as well as our coaches, will also be supporting the full 4 bullets here. The remaining, which includes the 24.7%, the remaining percentage, which would be 75% roughly, would be used to return our students to in-person learning, as well as make sure our facilities and grounds are updated due to the pandemic COVID relief funds. Are there any questions or comments from the board regarding the recommendation for the learning loss plan?
I just want to make a comment. As the chair of the Ed Development Committee, I'm very impressed with the plan that Michelle and the cabinet came up. It will really target those struggling students and students that are struggling both from COVID and our struggling students because they're at-risk learners. It's a tight plan. I'm impressed that we're bringing MTSS and the SEL piece to our school. I've been using it in Philadelphia for the last 3 years. It's a great plan. It's a tiered plan. It's tight. And hopefully this will help us address the COVID slide and eliminate any at-risk students in the front end. So thank you. And the Ed Development Committee does support this plan.
Thank you, Mrs. Bowman. Are there any other questions or comments?
I just want to thank you and your staff for the amount of time and energy that you've put into such a well-rounded and well-designed plan. I have no doubt, over the next 3 years as we implement this, it's really going to help those students that were, academically affected by our suspension of what I consider normal school. So thank you and your staff very much for the hard work that you've put into it.
Thank you. We look forward to implementing.
Thank you, Michelle. And the best part of the plan, not the best, but one of the facets of the plan is actually leave something in place when it's done, something that wasn't there ahead of time. So it really is a nice plan. So thank you. Next up is Mr. Scott Downing. He is an architect from Spiesel, and he's going to give us a 10,000-foot view, or sometimes a street level view of a proposed new elementary school that we've been working on for a number of months, including this afternoon, Mr. Parentano. So.
There you go. We presented this last week to the board committee, and the presentation I'll go through tonight is similar. However, there are some changes. We did receive some feedback at that meeting, so we made some adjustments. We have reviewed those, among other things, with the administration, and the fruits of those efforts are reflected in the presentation tonight. So the new elementary school is proposed for this campus. So in the plan you see up here, the large blue building is Maple Point Middle School. The lower side of that image is the main entrance you came in tonight, which is right out here. So the elementary school is to the left of the main entrance of the school. There's a relatively flat area over there. The proposed improvements would consist of changes to the parking area, drives, parking in the front of the new school, which is to the lower side of the plan, and a bus drive and drop-off is in the upper part of the plan. So there would be entrances on both sides of the building for those purposes. In terms of drop-off, in terms of parking first at Maple Point, with the potential to expand the parking lot to the right-hand side of this image, we have to reduce the parking spaces on the left-hand side to allow for the drives for the new elementary school. But if that parking is built, the same number of spaces would remain for the middle school. The drives that are available for the new elementary school, the drop-off drive, which is the one that stretches across the lower part, when you consider both sections, the section on the right-hand side, and then you have an intersection, and then the section that runs across the front of the school. To give you a comparison of the length there, if you compare it to Tawanka, there's close to 3 times the amount of drop-off length there for parents to drop off and students to unload on that side of the school. On the bus drive side of the school, we have an allowance for about the same amount of length as currently exists at the Tawanka Elementary School for the buses to drop off and queue up. So the basic concept for the building is a centralized plan, trying to be as compact as possible. The parent drop-off entrance is to the bottom of this slide. The bus drop-off would be to the upper part. So the bus drop-off is designed so that kids can enter and stage in the dining area prior to the start of school, and at the end of school could stage in the dining area as they exit to the buses. Learning classrooms are created in a series of pods, which would be assigned by grade level, and I'll go into that in a little more detail. Art spaces, library, and so forth are diagrammed here, and a stage is planned that would be usable from 2 different spaces depending on the groups and the needs, so both from the dining area and from the gym area, and usable as a classroom in and of itself. So the basic floor plan is what you see here. Again, the lower level is The lower entrance is to the bottom. The bus drive entrance is to the upper part. And the area classrooms to the left you see two pods. So there's a kindergarten pod and there is a grade level pod. And then, I'm sorry, we actually have the second floor up here overlaid. So makes it a little hard to see what's on the first floor, but up to the upper right, you have the gathering spaces, which would be used for evening use. So you have the dining area, the gym, stage, music, art spaces, and so forth. For functionality, and again, similar to the way Tawanka was set up, the school is designed so that the pod classrooms can be isolated from the rest of the building for evening use. Now, one of the design changes from Tuesday is we talked a little bit about this, that the design here for the bathrooms is still in flux, but we're looking at a layout that allows the bathrooms to be accessed from two different sides. So in the evening, the door to the pod side would be closed off. During the day, the door to the other side would be closed off. So this allows those bathrooms to count toward the required number of bathroom fixtures in the evening, and that reduces the amount of bathrooms we have to have near the gym and the dining and so forth. So that allowed us to reduce the square footage a little bit. So the other change that is here is, those of you who saw the presentation on Tuesday, in the center hub, there was a large gathering stair, and there was some discussion around that and some mixed feedback. So we have taken that out, which saves us a fair amount of square footage, and we've altered the design to include a small gathering area, which I'll show you some 3D images of in just a moment. And that area we think will still support the gathering function we were striving to achieve, but do it on a slightly smaller scale and with substantially less square footage. So it allows us to reduce the square footage, and our goal also being to reduce the estimated costs. So the difference between this plan and the plan we showed on Tuesday is about 2,000 square feet. So we're about 2,000 square feet less because of these changes, and that translates to savings in the estimated costs. So again here, this is the second floor. So you have 3 pods on the second floor. You have 2 pods on the first floor. Now the pods are set up so that there are spaces within each pod that classrooms can break out into, can share, and the pods are interconnected. So in a particular year, if you happen to have a large grade, say a large second grade class versus a third grade class, the rooms are arranged so that they can be switched or reassigned, and the continuity and the functionality of the pods can still be utilized. So this is one of the pods in a little more detail. So the 2 green areas in the center are open classroom areas. This is, again, similar to what was used at Tawanka and has been successful there. The classrooms around that area would have walls that would allow them to open up onto the open areas. So furniture can be moved back and forth. Students and teachers can expand out, can use larger areas for big activities, can combine classes into group activities, and so forth. And the center spaces are core spaces, including faculty support space, bathrooms, storage and mechanical areas, and several small group rooms for use by each pod. So this is, I'll show you a couple of images. These are concepts for how the exterior would look. So this is an image of what the new entrance of the building would look like. So the accent area, kind of about a third of the way in from the right, is where the main entrance would be. We're trying to keep the materials of the building fairly simple. So this would be brick masonry, maybe some different sizes, some different colors. We would use an accent in the entrance areas. To the right of this, you see an area set back, which is where the art and music rooms would be. We're looking to put in some monitor lights there, so the roofs that poke up have windows that allow light from the north to come in and provide lots of natural light into the art and music spaces. Just a slightly different view. This would be of the drop-off zone in front of the main entrance. You see the art and music spaces to the right. This is a little closer view from the opposite direction. So this is looking toward the main entrance from the other side of the drop-off area. This is a view from the other side. So the concept on this side is, again, you would have an entrance that would be designated. This would be the bus drop-off entrance as opposed to the parent, visitor, or main entrance. This would lead you into a courtyard space in the building that could be used as a breakout area, could be used as outside classroom. could be used for various activities, would be connected to dining as well as instructional space for the possibility of maximizing the flexibility of that space. Again, just another view of what that might look like. A little bit of an overhead view, so I guess this is your 10,000 foot elevation view. And this is the view of the courtyard on the bus drop-off side. And this is kind of a concept for what that space might feel like. So that would be the dining space that's directly in front of you, the drop-off canopy to the left side, and the rest of the building and classrooms to the right side of this image. So the idea behind this space is it's an area that on nice days could be used for queuing and arrival activities related to students. On days where you might have inclement weather, the canopies would allow the students to enter undercover into the dining area where they could then head off into the school on those days. Just another view, slightly different angle of that area. So I'm going to show you 3 internal images. This is the image we showed on Tuesday. So this was the large gathering stair that was in the concept at that time. In the lower right, you'll see an image which was a sketch from our earliest presentation. And in that sketch, you can see that the concept for the gathering stair was actually smaller at that point. So we've actually kind of headed back in that direction. So what we're proposing is, instead of the gathering stair, at the stair here, the open stair that would go up to the second floor, we would have a small gathering area. It would be accessible from both sides, so on the hallway side and also on the dining side. So teachers could bring a class here. There could be an activity planned around this area. It's going to be in the center of the school. So, we can create, as we move forward with design, with color and other things, we can kind of make it an accent point within the building. But it could be used during lunch, prior to school, after school, and for also classroom and instructional activities. So this is just a view from the other direction, from the dining side. So you would have areas where kids could sit, gather around, where activities could be laid out, and this would be similar, if you wanted to give a comparison, this would be similar to the stage area that's used kind of in the center of the main street at Tawanka Elementary School. So real quickly, just to kind of let you know where we are, we're effectively at the end of schematic design. We are ready for you to take action to submit Plan Con A to the Pennsylvania Department of Education. So the moratorium with the Pennsylvania Department of Education is still on. We talked about this a little bit on Tuesday. As a result, they will view this as a non-reimbursable project, and their reviews will be quote-unquote informal. However, we've been through this process a couple of times with them, and there are still several reviews with them that we need to take leading up to an Act 34 hearing for the project. So we will submit a Plan Con A, assuming that's acceptable to you this evening. That will go in with educational specifications, plans, like you have seen here tonight, and a copy of the district-wide study for reference. And then we will work with them on their review and obviously address any comments and so forth. And at this point, we are ready to move forward to design development with the goal of heading toward the other approvals that have to occur prior to that Act 34 hearing. Right now, our target for that would possibly be in an October timeframe. And the goal for the overall project would be to complete the design and documentations around the end of the year, bidding the early part of 2022. So with that, I don't know if there are any questions from the board.
I have a comment. Can I make a comment? Sure. Okay. Thanks, Scott, for listening to my concerns about the gathering stairs. I really like what you've done with the space. I think it's more, we can utilize it, the teachers can utilize it in much more activities because now you can see it from the cafeteria and from the hallway coming in. So thank you.
Good, good.
I had a question in regard to the capacity for this with the current design. We've had phases in our district where elementary was kindergarten through 5th, and then middle school was 6th through 8th. Now it's K through 4 and 5 through 8. let's just say, again, this is a hypothetical, but if we were to switch to K through 5, would the current design support that?
So I think it would. We've specifically tried to approach each pod finding a balance. So the pod can function and have a personality of its own, but at the same time can share spaces across multiple pods. So without question, it would be a little bit different in that you might have, where you have 2 pods together, you might spread 3 grades, for example, versus 2. So the assignment of spaces would change a little bit. But I think it would give you the flexibility to adapt to different configurations like that.
And in regard to the smaller rooms within the pods, how many students could that handle?
So these are designed for the district class sizes. The classrooms you see in this plan are all larger than what exists at Tawanka. So grades 1 through 4 are larger by about 100 square feet per room. And the kindergarten rooms here are larger as well.
How many students would that be? Anybody know?
Right.
I think for Pennsylvania, it has to go up to 34, correct?
30, that's kind of what I remember. Okay, all right.
I don't know
Yeah,
in
one-
Pennsylvania, but our class size limits range from 21 to 29, I believe.
Right.
Kindergarten through 5.
Thank you.
Right. One of the changes we're looking at here is to give you as much flexibility as possible is looking at more movable furniture in the classrooms as opposed to fixed casework. So this is a general trend in education as the emphasis to make rooms as flexible as possible is increasing. So this will allow furniture like a storage unit, for example, to be moved to a different location if the room needed to be configured differently. So that's one of the things that we're looking at in the design also.
And the pods are designed too that there's movement from year to year within grade levels, where 1 year third grade's closer to capacity in 4th grade and back and forth. You can move between the pod levels, correct?
You could reassign rooms, yes.
Mr. Dick Downey, I want to thank you and your staff for the amount of attention that you've given the project. We've had a very successful relationship with your architectural group. We're very pleased with how Tawanka turned out, and the submission for this conceptual plan that you've put forward is very pleasing, as we indicated at our meeting. We understand that this is just the first of many stages as we move through, and just for the public's information, the board has started this back in 2013. The concept of renewing our elementary schools. Now, unlike some other districts did that tried to do it all at once, the board at that time, and some members from that board are still here, many new ones, felt that it'd be better to go around the district in a progressive format. Tawanka was identified back then based upon the demographics and population. Recently, the conditions in the financial markets have made it, what word should I use? Very conducive or optimal. Thank you. Thanks for the vocabulary lesson. To take another look at this. I want to thank especially Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Allen, Mr. Cirillo on the Facilities Committee, who put forth the concept of let's see if we can get something done while we're in this market, because we will have to borrow money in order to do this. We've set a budget of about $40 million. In comparison, when we did Tawanka was spec'd at $34 million. It came in at $31 million. Very doubtful in this bidding market that we're going to come in substantially lower. But as long as the financial markets hold and the bidding market holds, we think we can have this project completed and hopefully open for a September 23 start, with a backup date of December 23, which would be a Christmas changeover. This is just another step of what we started in 13. Hopefully another board in another couple years We'll then be looking at another region in the district, Region 2, to revitalize the schools in that. We have six elementaries altogether? I forget. Six total.
6 total, yes.
6 total operating elementary schools, and there's no way you can do them all at once. But it's been my goal, and I know the goal of every member on this board, is to make sure at some point in time every region of this district shares in having a new elementary school. And as we've learned from what we've done at Tawanka, some things we didn't do quite right. Mr. Downey and his group have brought those fixes to what we're proposing here at Maple Point. And then at some time when we move to Region 2, the Levittown area, hopefully the old Samuel Everett site that's currently being used by IU, there'll be even greater improvements that will go into that. In the meantime, the board has been able to keep up with the facilities and upgrades to our old schools. We've made sure that every school not only has air conditioning, but they also have the same security features to protect our students. And as we continue to move forward, we're trying to make sure that our facilities stay pace with the amount of use they get, because they do get a tremendous amount of use. Years past, not any fault of the prior boards, but different conditions did not allow for a lot of revenue to be available for facilities. So some facilities did run into a lot of disrepair. But I think we're at a good point now where regardless of what facility a child's in, they're all comfortable. They all have a great atmosphere and most importantly, have a great teacher in front of the classroom for them to learn with. So I know the board is very pleased where we're at, and hopefully the markets hold out and we can pull this project off, and we'll just keep working on it to make sure we keep those numbers as low as possible. So
Yes,
if anyone doesn't have any other questions for Mr. Downey, we'll let him get home. Everybody good? Thank you very much, Mr. Downey. Appreciate it. Okay, that brings us to our first period of public comment. Those that have signed up will be called by the board secretary to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes. Please address the board directly. State your name, the area in which you reside, and your occupation. And please, no personal attacks from the podium. Let's maintain decorum. I know a lot of people have signed up and want to speak. So, Mrs. Burns, will you start calling the roll, please?
Tricia Laurig.
To the members of the board, I really appreciate you hearing me today. My name is Dr. Tricia Laurig. I live in Feasterville, and I am a family physician in Northeast Philadelphia. My daughter is planning on starting kindergarten at Tawanka this year, so I am new to the Neshaminy School District. I always knew I'd be nervous when she was starting kindergarten, but I thought it would be making friends, missing her parents, that kind of stuff. My greatest concern with her right now is COVID. And I'm extremely nervous that her exposure to COVID is going to be significantly greater without universal masking. I understand right now that being on the school board is probably more difficult than it has been in other years, given the controversy with this. But I also believe that until our children can be vaccinated, that masking indoors is the only way we have of protecting our children at this time. The CDC has recommended that all unvaccinated people should be masked indoors, and that includes every child under the age of 12. The American Academy of Pediatrics has also recommended that we mask children in school at this time. As we know, masking is much more efficient when the person that is infected is masked. My mask protects you, your mask protects me. We've all heard this 1,000 times over the last year, but I feel like some people have forgotten it over the last couple of months. However, I also understand that some parents are willing to take that risk and do not want to mask their children indoors. So what I'm asking the board is if there is a possibility of polling parents before assigning classes before the school year starts. If the cases continue to go up, I have a feeling, as Dr. McGee said, that universal masking may necessarily be required. However, I think it would be a good idea to ask parents if they want their children masked or not, and possibly assigning classrooms in the elementary schools based on that. And at least one classroom per grade per school, or more if the desire is there. I worry about our children having some masked children in a class with some unmasked children, because I worry about bullying and isolation in either direction in that situation. If you had 5 kids masked and the rest of the kids unmasked, that they would get bullied, or if it was in the other direction and you had some kids unmasked and some kids masked, that they would get bullied. I am very, very big proponent of our kids need to be in person, our kids need to be in school, but I want it to be the safest way possible. And just today, the health commissioner of Philadelphia recommended indoor masking for everyone to protect our children. I am also concerned about Section 3E of the safety plan. This section states that no positive cases are going to be reported, and that people are not going to be notified if there's a positive case in their class. So right now, if someone with lice is in my kid's class, I'm going to be notified. But if they have COVID, I'm not. And what I'm seeing right now is breakthrough cases in people with unvaccinated people in their house. And I worry that these kids, if we're not told that they have COVID, are going to take COVID home. Not told that they have COVID in their class, are going to take COVID home to their high-risk family members and infect their whole house. And I worry about that.
Dave Monaco?
Elected members of the board, fellow parents and community members, my name is Dave Monaco. I'm a parent of a first grader at Furtabar Elementary, and I am gravely concerned with the health and safety plan, which aims to remove almost all health and safety measures needed to normalize the school setting in the existence of COVID. Schools have been shown to mimic the community spread. It was the preventative efforts such as requiring masks, contact tracing, social distancing, and mandatory isolation of those that tested positive for the virus that allowed schools to maintain that level. What this plan tells me, by eliminating almost all mitigation efforts, is there is a true lack of care for all community members. This reckless plan tells me that you are opting to discriminate against students and families with pre-existing conditions because some people don't want to be uncomfortable for a few hours a day or believe that their rights are being violated, most of whom won't be stepping in the buildings. Please think of the students who cannot go to school if you eliminate health and safety measures. They're the ones that will truly have their rights violated. We all want to be back. We all want our children to be with their peers and teachers, and we do not want to lock down again. We do not also want our children to be the vector that causes the harm that we experienced last year to resurface. But to do so, we must have health and safety protections in place in order to protect all, especially those most at risk, not simply appease a few. What this failure of a plan does is push at-risk students further from their peers and educators. The same students that you ignored the social and emotional health of last year, you are planning to disregard again. This plan says, if you don't like it, stay home. This plan opens the door for vast, unchecked community spread. This virus, particularly the Delta variant, spreads exponentially based on viral load due to exposure. What this plan does is put students in harm's way both at school and on the buses. Remember 2020? It did exist. The idea that you want to act like it's 2019 is unacceptable. You'd rather risk the lives of our children and community by removing all the mitigation efforts that allowed you to get kids into school last year. To ignore the rest of the country and the world now is wrong and irresponsible. On Tuesday's Zoom meeting, Dr. McGee used local guidance from a single doctor as the reasoning for disregarding recommendations of the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics, groups of doctors. But this is not a local virus. This virus doesn't care about our school district borders. This plan is equivalent to a toddler covering their eyes to disappear. Based on last year's move to add students while cases and deaths were peaking, I have no faith that you will add safety measures when rates rise again. Preventative measures should not be a reactionary effort. By then, it'll be too late. No one will remember if you get this right, but you will be to blame if you get this wrong. The health of our children and community in your hands. I plead that you make a responsible decision, require masks, contact tracing, and mandatory absence for those who test positive, for all to return safely. Thank you.
Daniel Adler.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board and the administration. You've been burdened with a very difficult task, and I appreciate all of you for taking this on.
Excuse me, sir, your
Yes.
name,
I'm
area
sorry,
in which you
Daniel-
reside, and your occupation?
Daniel Adler, Middletown Township, Parkland area, and I'm a researcher. Dr. McGee, I did want to thank you very much for the meeting the other night on Zoom. It was very thoughtful of you to give us an opportunity to speak with you, so thank you. I did notice that missing from the plan here was, it mentions that the CDC said that one size does not fit all. However, it does not mention that the CDC also said that all unvaccinated students over the age of 2 should wear masks in school. Masks are proven to be safe and effective means of mitigating exposure to the coronavirus. In my opinion, it is a serious lapse in judgment for the default policy of this school district to be the riskier of the two options. When it comes to the safety of our students and staff, why wouldn't you err on the side of caution and then adjust from that? I urge you all to consider a policy that requires unvaccinated students and staff to wear masks. Or I would support also the policy that has been floated of maybe having classes with kids who all are wearing masks. I did notice that outside there was a police officer here, and I imagine that the police were called, just in case. And so I would urge the school board to also consider mandating masks for unvaccinated students, just in case. Thank you very much.
Stephen Donahue.
Good evening, board. My name is Stephen Donahue. I reside in Quincy Hollow. I am a former Marine, and I'm a registered nurse. Quick little history. Joined the Marines, spent 13 months in Iraq, did my time. One of the first things you learn as a Marine is safety is paramount, right? You take that wherever you go now. I'm a nurse, St. Mary's. I was one of the first nurses in the hospital to take care of COVID patients. That day that I started taking care of patients, I had a trailer put in my house to protect my family. I stayed there until I got sick, and now I'm suffering from what they call long-term COVID. Okay? I look fine to you, but I'm not. Every day I wake up, I don't know if I'm going to remember things. I have to have my 11-year-old son walk outside with me and remind me of things. If I talk with somebody on the phone, I have to make sure I write things down or I forget things. I had to take extra medicine just to come here because I have panic attacks. I have severe anxiety. I have cognitive issues. I have psychiatric issues now. This is not something that you want a child to deal with. I can tell you what's wrong. I'm a 42-year-old man, and sometimes I have an issue telling you what's wrong. You expect kids that are 5, 6, 10, 11 to tell you what's wrong? It's not going to happen because they won't be able to. They're just coming into themselves. The easiest thing that you can do is mandate masks for children. It is our job as parents to protect them. It is your job, as I am assuming if you're awake, that you have kids, or you did have kids, or you have nephews or nieces. You want to protect them. The easiest way to do that is to require masks, okay? I drove past my kids' school. They were walking outside, getting mask breaks. They were doing everything they could, okay? That's the easiest thing you can do for right now. If you're going to go back to the spacing, okay, that's fine, but require masks. It's one of the safest things right now that you could possibly do. There's study after study after study that will tell you that you're not reducing sorry, this is part of it. I forget what I'm saying, okay? There's parts, there's studies that show that you are not increasing your CO2, okay? That's bull. I've done the research. I was researching everything that came out of Europe when it first started happening. I argued with our infectious disease director when he came out and said it wasn't airborne, but it is airborne. The Delta variant from Malaysia now is a 15-second transmission rate. Do you understand 15 seconds? Think about that. That's all it takes is 15 seconds for somebody to contract this disease. Please do not do this to the kids. You have to ask yourselves, are you willing to take full responsibility if one of these kids
finish up, please.
ends up like me and can't describe what's going on and has long-term effects not knowing? I haven't been at work. I haven't been able to do things. My life is a mess now because of COVID. Think about that. I look fine on the outside, but what happens on the inside?
Thank you, sir, and thank you for your service.
Michael Shumacher.
Good evening, Chairman and Superintendent. My name is Michael Shumacher, and I live in Levittown, and I'm a geologist. The health and safety plan, as submitted, is a plan to do nothing. It is a statement saying COVID no longer exists, to go back to the way things were, cover your ears and eyes to anything COVID-related. Granted, cases were lower when this plan was drafted, but COVID is not going away in the country and certainly not going away in Bucks County. The following numbers come directly from the Bucks County Coronavirus Information website. Today, the 7-day case average for Bucks County was 28.4. At the same point last year, that number was 39.7. August 1st of last year, the number was 29, nearly identical to what it is now. It was trending up last year and is now trending up faster than last year. And last year, you were implementing a hybrid schedule, mandating masks in schools and in buses, and implementing synchronous and asynchronous learning options for all students. Yet now, your recommendation is to do nothing. Now, you may be thinking this year is different because there are vaccines. You're right. You didn't see me at meetings last year because I wasn't vaccinated. Now I am, so is my wife. Add that to the positives for this year compared to last year. However, my daughter is not vaccinated and cannot be vaccinated until vaccines are approved for children under 12. She's in the same boat as half the students in this district who are also too young to get vaccinated. Add that to the negatives for this year. The Delta variant, which is the most common variant in the country right now, has been documented to be more contagious and faster spreading than the virus of last year. Another negative for this year. I have two options for suggested amendments to the health and safety plan that I urge you to consider either at this meeting or at the next meeting closer to when schools open. Since all reputable medical groups and media outlets say that this is now a pandemic of the unvaccinated, I ask you to mandate masks inside schools where there are students not yet eligible to get vaccinated. That would be the elementary and middle schools. Do this until all those students who want to get vaccinated to protect themselves can get vaccinated. Once that happens, drop the mask mandate. If that's too much of a pill to swallow, consider this. Mandate masks for the first 3 full weeks of school. This will minimize the risk of an explosion of cases from students and staff that may have traveled to other parts of the world and contracted the virus, yet do not know they have it. That increases the chances of keeping schools open and properly staffed, and everyone in this room can agree that is what we want. I beg you to consider these amendments to protect all students and faculty of the Neshaminy School District. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Dana Felcher.
Hi, my name is Dana Felcher. I live in Trevose-Feasterville area, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I wanted to thank you for your consideration for the safety of our children. I am a little confused, however, why we're labeling opening the schools this year in a pre-pandemic way when we are still in the midst of a pandemic. In order to be enrolled in school, we must prove that our children have been vaccinated against many illnesses, including polio, which has not even been an issue in the United States since the early 1950s. Tetanus is another thing that is required. There is currently a pandemic in which our children who are under 12 cannot be vaccinated. The American Academy of Pediatrics says that all people, vaccinated and unvaccinated, should be wearing masks in the schools when it's opened. The Philadelphia health officials agree. They are planning for masks. Even national statistics, as reported today, says there's a trend of increasing cases for children getting ill from COVID, and it is expected to continue rising. Making it a parent's choice to have their child wear a mask in a school of either fully unvaccinated or partially unvaccinated children is against scientific evidence and the recommendation of respected organizations on medical advice, especially in cafeterias, which are set up in a pre-pandemic way. It doesn't make any sense to me as to why the children would wear a mask and then they're going to go into a cafeteria where they will be sitting with all of the other children, masked or unmasked, because obviously all of the children have to be unmasked to eat, and we know that that is a way during eating when spitting happens and it's more likely to be spread. I'm not suggesting anything in regards to vaccinations. My issue is with mask wearing, social distancing within the cafeteria or other eating times, and precautions being taken. The number of children getting seriously ill from COVID may be low now, but they are rising due to the Delta variant. As a parent, I know last year in the high school, we received a letter on an almost daily basis about a kid who was positive with COVID. I know about quarantining because my child had to quarantine because of it. And I have other children who are too young to be vaccinated. If the choice is the parents to wear a mask, there will be many children who do not wear masks in the school. The school having the requirement of mask wearing is what protected our children last year. And so, especially without reporting, the children coming in who were positive on an almost daily basis will continue to be so, only the masks won't be there to protect those that are unvaccinated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matthew Taylor.
Hello, I'm Matthew Taylor. I live in Quincy Hollow, and I'm a small business owner. And the last time I was here during the May board meeting, I spoke to you all with the hope of getting the mask mandate removed for the remainder of the school year. I could see the negative effects that having to wear a mask for 7 hours a day was having on my daughter, both physically and emotionally. When I left that meeting, disappointed that the mandate wasn't removed, I come to this meeting encouraged by the new health and safety plan proposed by Dr. McGee for the upcoming school year. I fully support the plan as it returns school operations back to what they were before the pandemic. It provides the option for parents to choose what is best for their child. My daughter will be entering first grade at Walter Miller this year. When I told her she wouldn't have to wear masks this year, her face lit up with excitement. She loves going to school. She can't wait to meet her new classmates and teacher without having all of their faces covered. She can finally experience elementary school the way it was always supposed to be. At her age, I feel that the removing of masks and other mandates will greatly improve her development both socially and academically. While I'm encouraged by the current health and safety plan as it stands today, the true test of this plan will come in the fall when cases will certainly rise due to the seasonality of the virus. My fear is that at the first sign of cases rising, your first reaction will be to put the mask back on our children. If this happens to be the case, I would demand that the superintendent and the board provide us with data and evidence proving to us that the masks and other mitigation efforts actually work. Do not bring back the mitigations of last year without providing us with the data showing that those mitigations will actually make a difference. I've seen no data to support schools with a mask mandate have lower infection rates than those schools without such mandates. Schools with mask mandates and schools without mask mandates will virtually have the same infection rate. If you have the data showing masks and other mitigations slow the spread within schools, I demand you to share it with us before changing course. I encourage you all to stand firm with the plan as it is currently constructed. Do not waver or be quick to revert back to 2020 mitigations that were not proven to be effective at slowing down this virus in the first place. I hope you all vote to approve the health and safety plan as it is currently written, which will allow parents to make the decisions that are best for their children. Thank you all for your time and for allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kim Gorman.
Good evening, Kim Gorman in Red Rose Gate. We own a holistic healthcare practice. So I have been to many board, oh wait, I'm sorry, I'm gonna start off with something else. My intention for tonight is to express my gratitude for a health and safety plan that is reasonable, appropriate, and exactly what I and many parents have been asking for months. I believe the frustration that was seen last time I was here was a result of not feeling heard. I finally feel heard, and I thank you for that, Dr. McGee. I trust that you will all vote to pass this tonight and we can finally begin to repair the damage that has been done to our children. We know this virus is not deadly to children. In fact, Marty Macari from Johns Hopkins School of Medicine analyzed childhood COVID cases and found a mortality rate of 0 among children without a pre-existing condition such as leukemia, 0. Returning to school with masks optional, along with all of the other restrictions lifted, allows for the most choice for the parents. Those who wish to keep their children masked have the option to do so. Those of us who choose to let our children breathe freely are finally given the option to make that choice. For those parents that are opposed to this plan who wish to mandate masks, you have a choice. You can send your child in a mask if that makes you feel comfortable. You could put them in a cyber school if that will work best for you. Homeschool is another option. For the first time in 18 months, I have a choice to send my children to school without a mask. And they are so excited to go back. Thank you for considering all students by allowing choice. And I also just want to add that, and I probably have said it before, that no one ever talks about building their immune system. So if you're concerned about your children being sick, build their immune system, give them vitamin D. That has been shown to be deficient in every single COVID case, every single one. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jeanette Elrosa. Jeanette.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jeanette Eliason. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm in Middletown Township. My kids will also be in Walter Mills School District. I do have a child going into 1st and 4th grade. I'm a dental hygienist. I'm also a veterinary nurse. And I'm an instructor at the University of Pennsylvania. Kids basically from the ages of 9 to 11, according to Dr. Fauci, who was able to give and speak to us at CHOP, through virtual How to Get Adolescents Through the COVID Pandemic. In his meeting, he did state that basically ages from 9 to 11 will not be able to be vaccinated, most likely till later this fall. Any children under the age of 9 to 6 months basically will not get a vaccination until sometime next year. They are still trying to figure out that data and figure out what's safe enough for these kids to receive the vaccination. Masks are important, and it has been proven, and there's a lot of clinical studies out there, and I have a wealth of information, and I can definitely go through all these records through CHOP. I think we really need to take it into consideration. These kids don't have a voice. Are you going to be with that child that ends up in the hospital asking mommy and daddy if they can get the vaccination? There was a 19-year-old that just passed away last week. That's not in our Bucks County data right now, if you look. That was never recorded. Was anybody there to help that child? Was unvaccinated. A lot of parents are scared after a certain age of 12 years and older to vaccinate their children because it is a new vaccine, and we all get it. But one of the things that we have found is that masks have helped. University level, we're all vaccinated. It's mandated at the university. But we're also being masked because we want to stay open and we want to keep everybody healthy. These kids don't have a choice, and we're trying to keep them healthy, and we're trying to keep them with their fellow schoolmates. My children love to be in school, but they know the importance of the mask, and they know that we have elderly parents around us, even with them being vaccinated. I don't want to be the one that kills my 87-year-old father. This virus is deadly. We don't know the outcome of this risk and later to come. We won't know if these children who get COVID now, if they're going to have long-term side effects when they're in ages 25 to 40, if not older. We already know that chickenpox affects us later. It goes dormant in our bodies. And that's how we go ahead and get affected in our later years with shingles. And that's why the vaccination's out. We need to keep all these scientific data in base. This is new to everybody. We don't know these outcomes. But we do know that these masks do help and keep our children safe. And I understand that I'm vaccinated. I go to the gym. I'm trying to protect everybody. I don't know what everybody else is. We are all up and down, and there's so many emotions, many of us. My kids don't like wearing the mask as much either, but they know they're allowed to have breaks, and they do agree, and they feel comfortable in it. My daughter loves it, especially in the wintertime, because it keeps her face warm. I just want everybody to take this into consideration and really look at the full data and talk to our fellow hospitals like CHOP and everything else and what their recommendations are besides what we just have here in Bucks County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Ann Love.
Good evening. My name is Mary Ann Love. I live in the Quincy Hollow section. I will have children in Neshaminy High this year, Sandberg and Walter Miller, fourth grader. I'm a bank supervisor, and I have come basically to plead with you to reinstate the mask mandate. I've seen in the crowd how that's going to be received. I don't care. I have a 9-year-old who is unable to be vaccinated as of yet. She also has an autoimmune disorder. She's been home for 18 months. It's detrimental to her. She needs to go back to school. I want her to go back to school. I refuse to send her back unprotected with absolutely no safety mitigations at all. At this point, my older two who are vaccinated, because I want to protect them, I almost don't know if they can go back with safety precautions that simply do not exist. It's not 2019, and I understand you did this weeks ago, but today is today. These are the numbers my children are facing, not 2019. And I would like you to please give serious thought. If you can't sway the facial expressions that are behind me that are screaming for masks, if you can't turn them away, then at least reinstate the D1 option. Let me protect my daughter, whatever their choice is. They are free to make their choices and to take the risks that they choose to. These are not choices my daughter should have to face. They're not choices I should. If you want to do that, put the D1 option back until all the children can be vaccinated. Thank you.
Thank you.
No further sign-ups.
All right, thank you for your public comment. There will be a second. Go right ahead, ma'am.
Is it on already? Yeah, right. Okay, thank you. Hi, thank you so much for letting me jump in last minute. My name is Hema Duarte Adler. I live in Middletown Township, and I'm a writer. The measures that were taken in 2020, they weren't a waste. You probably saved lives. So all I'm asking is that we do it again with masks on. My kids are 6, 5, and 3, and they can't keep their hands off their faces. If a non-masked kid with COVID coughs, they cough on a surface or on a toy. My kid touches that toy, touches their face, their eye, because they will be masked. My kid has COVID just like that. The parents who don't want to mask their kids, they have the option of cyber learning and homeschooling. At the Zoom meeting, Mr. McGee said it was worth looking into grouping children, mask-wearing kids. I don't know, I know it's just been a couple of days, but it's worth asking for any update to look at that possibility, Mr. McGee. If any, I'm sorry? I'm sorry, Ms. Boyle? Oh, it wasn't you. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so So, the superintendent, was there any update on that you could? I realize that it's only been a couple of days since with the Zoom, but
There's no comments from the panel during public comment. At the end of the
okay.
meeting, we'll have.
Thank you. The other question is that I have, if the board can explain the ventilation system that was installed. How often does it clean a room per hour? Is the ventilation system in every classroom, office, library, gym, hallway, etc.? Lastly, I just want to say I could die in a car accident, but I'm not going to stop wearing a seatbelt. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll now move on to board business. Before we start, I'd like to announce that item 3.02 and item 6.03 are being removed from the agenda. That brings us to section 2, routine matters. I'd like to make a master motion for 2.01 minutes, 2.02 check register and procurement card purchases, 2.03 investments, and 2.04 exonerations.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sullivan. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes 9-0. Brings us to section 3, 3.01, revised leaves, retirements, resignations. Resolved that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors hereby approves the following revised retirements, resignations of administrative staff, and there's one name attached to that item. A motion's been made on 3.01. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Allen, it was a race. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Opposed? Is that Ms. Hollenbach? Opposed? Do we need a roll call with an opposed on this item?
It's a resignation. I'm sorry, it's a resignation. You don't need a roll
Okay.
call.
All righty. Anyone else opposed? Abstains? Motion passes 8-1. It brings us to 3.03, administrative appointments. Resolved that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors hereby approves the following appointments of administrative staff, and there are 3 names attached to that agenda item. Motion's been made on 3.03. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Bowman. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 8-1. At this particular time, I'd like to take this opportunity, since these are administrative hires, if Mr. Cochran would like to come to the podium, just introduce himself.
Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Mike Cochran. I'm a Neshaminy graduate, Neshaminy parent right now at all 3 levels. I've been a coach and an educator and now an administrator in the district, which I'm honored to do. As a parent and as a graduate of the district, I've always been proud of what we've done, of what we've had to offer as a coach and educator. Now, again, as an administrator, I'm honored to have the opportunity to further and pursue the district mission at Pequessing. So thank you, Dr. McGee and the board and cabinet and Mr. Hunt for having the faith in me to, uphold and keep Pequessing the great place that it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cochran, and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
We also have another new hire, Mara Hope. Would you like to come to the podium? Introduce yourself.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Mara Hope. I also am a graduate of Neshaminy School District. I currently do not work in the district, but now I do. So I just want to thank the board and thank the cabinet for having faith in me. Again, I kind of sound just like Mr. Cochran here. I went to Neshaminy. My kids go to Neshaminy. I'm very proud of everything that Neshaminy's done. And thank you, Dr. McGee, for everything that you've done and for what the board's done in the last few years. Really great. Thank you.
And last, we have Bob Maloney, who's going to be our new Director of Facilities. You want to put a face to the name there, Mr. Maloney?
Bob Maloney. I come from Bristol Township. I've been there for 6 years. I oversaw their construction of their 3 elementary schools, oversaw the construction of their new stadium turf athletic field, their administration, operation, transportation facility, bus garage. I'm so looking forward. I enjoyed meeting the entire board a couple weeks ago, some of the administrators. I look forward to meeting all my peers in the first couple weeks, as well as some of the key players in the township. So I can't wait to get started and help the district out and provide a clean, safe, dry learning environment for the staff.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. Congratulations. Thank you. All right, that moves us on to Section 4. Mr. Sullivan, 401, please.
Section 4.01, certificated appointments. Resolved that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors hereby approves the following appointments for certified staff, and there are 6 names on the list.
Motion's been made on 4.01. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Hollenbeck. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes 9-0. Excuse me. Mr. Marrington, would you do 4.02, please?
Okay, 4.02, co-curricular appointments. Resolved that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors hereby approves the following co-curricular appointments for certified staff. And there are a lot of names, 63 names on the list.
Motion's been made on 4.02. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Kovitz. It's a race. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes 9-0. Wow, this is a big one. Mrs. Boyle, 4.03, please. What? Oh, I'm sorry. You did say that, didn't you?
Yeah.
I apologize. Go right ahead, Mrs. Bowman. 4.03, please.
All right, I'd like to make a motion, 4.03, ancillary resignations. Resolved that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors hereby approve the following ancillary resignations for certified staff. And there is one name on the list.
You
Can
can
I
read
say
it.
Dan Gallagher. So congratulations, 57 years. Dan and I have worked very closely over the last, I guess, 20-some years in the aquatics. He has recruited kids into our core program. He's been a coach and has really been very passionate about bringing aquatic instruction to our district. So congratulations, Dan. 57 years, and thank you for your commitment. So that's the motion. I added a little bit.
That's okay.
I'd just like to add, too, that Dan Gallagher gave me my very first job as a high school student back in 1967. I also swam for Dan when he was still coaching at Neshaminy, so I'd also just like to congratulate him for 57 years. It's got to be close to a district record, isn't it? So, thanks, Dan.
Motions have been made on 4.03. May I have a second? Mrs. Boyle. Gotcha. As for a second. Any additional comments, questions, or concerns on 4.03? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes 9-0. Mrs. Boyle, would you do 4.04, please?
4.04, ancillary appointments. Resolved that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors hereby approves the following ancillary appointments for certified staff, and there are 37 names.
37 names. Motion's been made on 4.04. May I have a second? Mrs. Hollenbach. Comments, questions, or concerns on item 404? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes 9-0. Mrs. Hollenbach, 5.01, please.
I'd like to make a motion for 5.01 support appointments. Resolved that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors hereby approves the following appointments of support staff. 12 names on the list.
Thank you, Mrs. Hollenbach. Motion's been made on 5.01. May I have a second? Second by Mr. Allen. Any comments, questions, or concerns on that item? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 9-0. Mr. Cirillo, would you do 5.02, please?
I'd like to make a motion for 5.02, retirements, resignations, end of assignments. Resolved that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors hereby approves the following retirements, resignations of our support staff. There are 10 names listed.
Motion's been made on 5.02. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sullivan. Any comments, questions, or concerns? I would just like to take this opportunity to recognize one member who had 34 years of service here at Neshaminy. Thank you for those years given to our children, and wish you well in your retirement. It's with a sad note also that our condolences from the board to the family of Stephen Ott, who recently passed away. Thank you for the time you've been here at Neshaminy, and to your family, we hope for the best, and please accept our sincere condolences. The motions, excuse me. This first and the second have been made. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes 9-0. Mr. Kovitz, 5.03, please.
I'd like to propose 5.03, revised leave of absence. Should turn that on. Resolved that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors hereby approves the following revisions to previously approved leaves of absence of support staff. And there are 2 names on the list.
Thank you. Motion's been made on 5.03. May I have a second? Second by Mrs. Hollenbach. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes 9-0. Mr. Sullivan, could you read 6.01, please?
6.01, new elementary school, Plan Con A. Whereas in order to receive state reimbursements for the new Maple Point Elementary project, the filing of Plan Con A with Pennsylvania Department of Education is required. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors authorizes Spiesel Architectural Group, Inc. to work with the administration to execute any and all documents for submission.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. A motion's been made on 6.01. Second? Second by Mr. Allen. Any comments, questions, or concerns? I just want to state, as Mr. Downey explained from the podium during his presentation, even though there currently is still a moratorium in effect for PlanCom reimbursement, the district is going to follow the PlanCom protocols. In case that program opens back up, we will apply for such reimbursement. First and a second have been made on 6.01. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes 9-0. Mrs. Hollenbach, 6.02, please.
Revised NASA Act 93 Agreement. Resolved that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors approves the revised Act 93 Agreement for the Neshaminy Administrative Support Association retroactive to July 1st, 2021.
Thank you, Mrs. Hollenbach. A motion's been made on 6.02. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sullivan. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes 9-0. Mrs. Bowman, 7.01, please.
I'd like to make a motion, 7.01, 2021 to 2022 Health and Safety Plan. Whereas the Neshaminy School District is required by the Pennsylvania Department of Education to approve a health and safety plan. Now therefore be it resolved that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors hereby approves the Neshaminy School District Health and Safety Plan as presented, subject to any changes necessary due to the conditions and additional guidance from the applicable government agencies in the coming weeks.
Thank you, Mrs. Bowman. The motion's been made on 7.01. May I have a second? Second by Mrs. Boyle. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Go right ahead, Mr. Kovitz.
I have a question. So, Doc McGee, as I understand it, the health and safety plan currently, as proposed, is based upon data that we had 3 weeks ago, and hypothetically speaking, if we continue to see a rise in Delta variant cases here in the county, and Dr. Damsker feels that it is not necessary for us to issue a mask mandate, despite increasing cases, would you take that as verboten, as not verboten, that's the wrong word. Would you take that as gospel? I mean,
so Dr. Damsker is the leading health authority in the area. That being said, if you go through last year's history, we didn't always follow his advice. He would have had us back in school earlier. He would have had us on modified quarantine earlier. We started modified quarantine. We took it away. Rob took it away. We put it back. We don't, in areas like that, I can recommend, and the board can act in more rigid, more restrictive measures than recommended by the county. So the county superintendents meet, if not weekly in emergencies, or we're in the biweekly mode now, with Dr. Damsker to review. Depends on what others do, depends on the comfort level of the community, depends on how many kids are going to come back to school. Our goal is to get kids back to school. I think that's where the defining line is. We need to get kids back to school. And I think it's too early to even ask people their opinion because we don't know what the conditions are. So will I take his word as gospel? I haven't in the past. He is the only one that answers my phone call, my text message, and my emails. The CDC doesn't get back to me very much. He does talk us through things, and a lot of the things that he has said over the last year have actually been adopted. He said them early, and I may have thought that he's done them too early, in my opinion, and recommended otherwise. So to your question, no, it's not taken as gospel. At the time of going through this, it seemed very reasonable. It seemed very reasonable.
and what would it take if, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen 3 weeks from now, if things are going to get better, if they're not. What would it take for us to have another meeting to update the health and safety plan?
So the next board meeting is August 17th. If there's reason to adjust it, I will recommend to adjust it. The board doesn't have to follow my recommendations. They can amend as they choose. So I think we're looking for a threshold, which is tough. If we look at the thresholds that were set last year, Pennsylvania Department of Education would have had us out of school every week. They sent me an email saying you should not be in school, you should be on remote learning. I think they then adjusted their thresholds to match what was working. So again, I think it's it's new again with this. So what is the threshold to put masks back on? Hopefully it's not the worst case scenario. So we have to do it before that. And that may be what happens in September.
One last question. And assuming that there is a rise, okay, the worst case scenario, how likely is it that we would institute an option D1 for parents that felt that it was not safe for their children to be in school.
The reason D1 existed last year was because of the significant number of students who were not going to come to school, and we as a group felt it was necessary to, give them something else. Other school districts have surveyed parents, and in every case, they found that there weren't enough at the moment to create such classes. In addition, the D1 option, in my opinion, as an educator, decreases the face-to-face option because you're managing two groups, ties the teacher to a computer. So it depends on how many are out there. So as we said, we did not see this coming 3 weeks ago. Now it's coming. So we will do what we always do, and when it's time, we will make the decisions that are best and most flexible for the community. So D1 is a matter of turning your laptop around and setting up a Zoom. So we can bring that back, and we have to figure out who's supposed to come to school and who's not. But we can do that. That just significantly changes the in-classroom educational environment. So I think the answer is when we know better what people's preference, opinions, concerns are with real information closer to the date, then we can make that decision.
Sorry, I have another one. I'm Columbo here. All right. Given that, why are we voting on this now? Why can't we put it off until August 17th?
We're required by the Department of Education to pass it by the end of July.
The end of July.
To get our $7 million.
So what you're saying then is we have to pass it so we get money coming in rather than burden taxpayers or dig into our budget. So we have to base it upon the knowledge that we have right now.
Yes. Or 3 weeks ago.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question. Mr. Kovitz had mentioned the D1 option, but correct me if I'm wrong, Neshaminy does have a cyber option, regardless of the D1 option, correct?
Correct. The Neshaminy School District Virtual Academy, NSDVA, exists, and that is presently the option out there. We can send our children to school. We can go to the Neshaminy Cyber School, which is a combination of asynchronous, synchronous learning with a learning coach. Last year, there was a third option right in the middle, which was live streaming from the classroom with interaction with those on the computer. And it actually, considering we turned it around on a dime and taught everybody how to do it, and it actually was a pretty neat thing to see. But that being said, the classroom environment wasn't exactly what it was normally do, but it provided for two different groups. And if you recall, at the end of the year, put me on the spot, 90% of our kids, we had 10% at the elementary still at home, maybe low teens of middle school still at home, and our high school kids decided home was better, and there were 30% of them at home. So I don't know if that was about COVID or something else. So, yep.
Last year, we successfully navigated a very difficult situation. We did that by staying informed, by some members on their own took their own initiative to reach out to Dr. Damster and have personal conversations with them. I know some members also spoke with their personal physicians about it. We got daily, if not bi-daily, updates from the school district and Dr. McGee. And then we sat around and made a decision, and we modified things as the conditions called for it. This plan is no different. We're just starting in a different place. As conditions may change one way or the other, we will adapt to them. Dr. McGee, I'm sure, will keep us just as informed as we were informed last year, and we all will deliberate in the same aspect as we did, putting children, their education, and their safety, first. So I'm fully supportive of starting where we're starting with this plan, regardless of whether it was drafted today or drafted 3 weeks ago. The board will adapt and modify as required. And as Dr. McGee said, there's various ways that the board can act to change when we feel that maybe what our personal research has shown us should be the right thing to do may be different than what were being inputted from Dr. Damsker or even from the administration. So I'm in fully support of this item, and hearing no other questions, we're going to call to a vote. So, item 7.01, first by Ms. Bowman, seconded by Mrs. Boyle. Calling for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes 9-0. We have to revisit one item before we move to closing of the meeting. The solicitor informed me that 3.03 required a roll call vote because there was one negative vote. Do I have to restate the motion? You should. 3.03 administrative appointments. Be resolved that the Neshaminy Board of School Directors hereby approves the following appointments of administrative staff, and there are 3 names on the item. A motion's been made on 3.03. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sullivan. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
It's a roll call.
I was going to roll call it after the. Doesn't make a difference? Okay. Mrs. Burns, standard roll call vote, please.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Bowman?
Yes.
Ms. Boyle?
Yes.
Mrs. Hallenbeck?
No.
Mr. Kovitz?
Yes.
Mr. Marrington?
Yes.
Mr. Parentano?
Yes.
Mr. Cirillo?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no.
Thank you. Motion passes 8-1. That'll move us to the.
Can we make them come up and speak again?
Yeah, I think we should. That'll move us to the closing of the meeting. Is there any additional board business? Anybody have any business want to bring to the board? Saying none. This will be our second period of public comment. Same rules as before. You'll have 3 minutes. You state your name, area in which you reside, your occupation. Please, no personal attacks. You can approach the podium. There will be no calling from the dais. Go right ahead.
I'll state my name again. I'm Dr. Tricia Laurig, family physician from Northeast Philadelphia, and I live in Feasterville. I didn't get to finish what I was saying earlier because of the time limit, but I just wanted to thank all of you. As someone who has the safety and health of children that are not mine in my care on a daily basis, I understand the difficulty that comes with having to take the safety of so many other people's children under advisement. But I do ask that you significantly over the next couple of weeks rethink your safety plan and look at the numbers. Bucks County has an over 300% increase in COVID cases in the last 2 weeks. The N naught of the Delta variant is 5 to 6, meaning if one child in a class of 25 is unmasked with COVID, the likelihood is that a quarter of that class is going to get COVID. The Delta variant is nothing to mess with. Children are getting sicker faster and worse than they were a year ago. I've been treating this, I don't want to curse, but this virus for the last 17 months. It is like nothing I've seen in 20 years of family practice. It is unpredictable. Last year, I was seeing kids with sniffles with COVID. Now I am seeing kids with fevers of 104, with profuse vomiting, with horrible dehydration, that are getting exposed and being sick 2 days later. This Delta variant is nothing to mess with, and we need to think about that. We are in pandemic 2.0 of the unvaccinated, and that is all of our children, and we need to protect them. We need to protect our own, and we need to protect others. And I seriously ask that over the next few weeks that you look at the rise in the Delta variant, at the recommendations from the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics, and give our kids a fighting chance until they can be vaccinated. Thank you.
Hey everyone, Dave Monaco again. Forgot to state my occupation last time. I am also in education, a background in public health and behavioral health, and I'm, again, deeply disappointed. You all know that. It's just sad to think that we are just hoping that this will work out. That is all that this is. There is no preventative measure. This is not a health and safety plan. Okay, this is let's just go for it and see what happens. Okay, this is very disappointing. I really hope that you reevaluate and reconsider and make some more announcements on what your final plan will be to start the school year, because some people have to make decisions whether to actually send students back into your buildings. We have to decide whether to leave our jobs to stay home with our children to help educate them in a virtual setting, or potentially relocate, because this is not the right setting. Thank you. That is it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joanne Sabresi. I'm from Levittown, and I'm a mindset coach. So for the past, 20-some years, I have helped people with anxiety, fears, and other type of emotional issues. And I have seen and witnessed this from many phone calls of my clients who have expressed a lot of concern because I'm sorry, I'm nervous. Their children, have a lot of anxiety and social issues when they're wearing the masks. And my daughter, she was a sophomore going to be a junior, and she never complained of headaches. And then when she started wearing the masks all day, she would come home and complain of headaches, and she was tired. And so many of us who are concerned about mandating masks for all children, it's not that we're selfish and we just want our children to be free of masks. It's deeper than that. And there are actually social issues that happen with that. There are emotional issues that go along with that. And if you look at some of the research that's being done about that, it's starting to come out that these are true concerns. So I actually really appreciate your vote for today that it's optional for children to wear masks. So I hope you continue to do so.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Brown. I'm from Georgetown Development in Langhorne. Was once a preschool teacher, and I took some time off to be with my baby. So right now I'm a stay-at-home mom. So I know that no matter what decisions you make, it's going to be right, it's going to be wrong. I mean, there's no win-win situation. I know everyone says, keep the mask on the kids until the vaccine. However, what if the vaccine doesn't work? It does work for some adults, but now there's breakthrough cases. I understand it helps with extreme illness, just like the flu. However, this is a new vaccine, and I think even when the vaccine comes out, there's going to be parents scared to death to give it to their kids. My daughter's 13, and she went to the doctors, and they gave her that option. They said, do you want this vaccine? And she says, not now. And I respect her for that. Us as parents, we know it's best for our children. We don't need a government to tell us that. We don't need a teacher to tell us that. Doctors can give recommendations, but we know ultimately what's really best for our kids. We've known since we were pregnant what's best for our children. So I think as of right now, we should be the ones to decide what's best. I mean, I got kids in my vacation Bible camp that I work at. Some are masked, some are not. And there's about 85 kids. We don't bully those kids. None of those kids are bullied. I mean, there's kids that come up to them and say, I like your mask. And they say, thank you. And it's fine. 2009 swine flu, my daughter got sick for 2 straight weeks. We can't always prevent what could happen. But we could do what's best for our kids. And if we are able to decide what's best for our kids, then more power to us. That's all.
Thank you. Again, I'm Mary Ann Love, and again, my daughter has an autoimmune disorder. So unfortunately, masks are not optional for her. or me, I hate this thing too. Greatly. I've been in it since, I don't know, 8 o'clock this morning. It's not comfortable. It's hot. It's July. It's going to be August soon. It's going to suck. But unfortunately, sometimes what's better for my children, all of our children, is uncomfortable. It's not a choice you want to make. And I think every parent in this room knows that they have had to make a hard or unpleasant choice. They've had to tell their child something they didn't want to hear, they didn't want to know. We make them eat their vegetables. We make them take their vitamins. We make them take their shots. We make them go to the dentist. They don't like any of that either. But it's necessary for their betterment and for ours. It's necessary to keep them healthy, to keep them growing strong. And I think that should be the ultimate requirement here, is to protect them. I can't do this without you. I can't. Behind me, there's a sea of faces. And some of them agree with me, and a lot of them don't. And everybody's vocal. This isn't about them. I don't have to convince anyone else. I have to convince you to care. I'm not here because of politics. I'm not here because a key was suddenly magnetized to me. I'm here to protect my kid. I don't care about all the other stuff. No one's going to speak for her but me. That's my job. That's also your job. And the masks are inconvenient and they're not pleasant, but they're not a death sentence. And these things can be. And there's a 5-year-old little boy from Georgia who would be loved to know that he's part of the 0% of the COVID fatalities. I don't want my 9-year-old to be one of them. There's no way for me there's no way for me to do this without you. Look at me and see my 9-year-old. That's who I'm here for. And that's who you should be here for, too. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to approach the podium? Go right ahead. Just give us your name and area
Hello,
you
I'm
live.
Berkeley Brenner, and I'm a student here at Maple Point. I live in the section of Twin Oaks, and it'd be really nice to go without masks to see my friends' smiles. And I'd also like some big lunch tables so I wouldn't have to be yelling over to my friends saying, hey, what's the code for Gimkit? Or like all of that stuff. I'd also like lockers because like, it's just like, I know this is a long shot, but I really like lockers because then I could decorate them and my back wouldn't hurt. That's all. Thank you. Nope, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Hi, once again, I'm Stephen Donahue. Thank you again for taking the time out to listen to all of us. Just one thing I do want to challenge you to do is to, like you said, you're supposed to be doing your own research. Don't just listen to one thing, okay? As nurses, we question everything. What people say up here, we question it. You know, we're not going to sit there and just take the ideas from one person and say that's it. You need to go home, even if you just do a little Google search. But if you start to dive deep into the studies that are coming out and things that are actually taking place here, your minds are going to change, okay? So I challenge you to actually do some research for yourself because this is such a huge thing for our kids. Just thank you again for taking the time to listen to us. It's been hard. You don't have an easy job. I get it. When I was in the military, I had 30 Marines and 20 civilian officers I had to take care of. I had to understand what their lives were like. And for me, everything was about safety for them. Can I give them a weapon? Can I send them out on a gate by themselves? Can I do these things? Safety is the most important thing. And you have one option, which is the easiest, is just to put a mask on kids. So just remember that. And just remember that if something happens and you decided not to do it, what's the point? Why react when you have an option to put in place before that? That's all. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Maureen Donahue. I'm Stephen Donahue's wife. I just wanted to say real quick about the mental health issues. So it was a really difficult year for us. Our kids were on the D1 option. It was hard for them to be home. Some of them excelled, some of them didn't. Mentally, they missed their friends. It was difficult for us watching them deteriorate like that. We want them back in school. It was, you know, I sympathize with everyone. Everybody had something that was terrible about, you know, the last year and a half of our lives. But what I also got to see was my kids stand at a window and watch their father get taken out in an ambulance and not have him walk back into our home for months. Like, mentally, I can't even imagine that for them. And I know I'm not the only one. I know there's other kids in our district, in Neshaminy, who have witnessed horrible things due to COVID. So mentally, to have them walk into a classroom with a bunch of other students without masks for them, it is also detrimental because, you know, they have anxiety seeing people without masks on because of what they witnessed. So just like your opinion is based on how you've lived through the pandemic and what you experienced and what you didn't have to go through or didn't, and who the handful of people that you saw who had COVID, who just had a cold, you know, everybody's experience is different. So you have to take all of that into consideration. And I just wanted to, you know, I know that's just my personal story, but I just wanted to hint on that. So thank you.
Good evening. John McGinley, employee of the Neshaminy School District, president of the Neshaminy Education Support Professionals Association. I would like to thank the board, Steve in particular, for recognizing our staff and staff of the entire school district as they transition into their much well-deserved retirement. I think I can speak for everyone who knows the individual you spoke of this evening. If you knew Kathy Ann, she would give Dan Gallagher's 57 years a run for her money. If it wasn't for some unfortunate, unforeseen issues, I believe Kathy Ann would be one of your most long-term employees this district has ever seen. We'd like to thank you again for the continuing recognition of our people as they retire. Thank you.
Emma Duarte Adler again. I had my issues with the plan were the mask wearing and also not having the district report to families when a COVID case broke out. Let's have a compromise of some sort. Don't send kids with no masks, but at least report to families that there has been a COVID outbreak. Or don't report to families there has been a COVID outbreak and allow masks. I mean, it can't be just all or nothing. I mean, the default right now is start with nothing and we go as needed. As needed might be too late. Let's come to the talking table and compromise. That's all I'm asking. Please. My 5-year-old kid, he wears a mask just fine. He doesn't complain about it. And we give him the facts in his level. And he says, I want to be safe. A mask, I feel safe. Even where he's around people who are vaccinated, he says, I have to wear a mask. We don't tell him. That is on him. He wants to wear a mask. I asked him today before I came, how do you feel most comfortable around people you don't know? He said that they wear a mask and I wear a mask. He's 5 and he gets it. Thank you.
All righty. Is there anyone else before we? Nope. Go right ahead, miss.
Sorry. I mean, if she can be big and brave, why can't I? We know who did not follows instructions well in school. Good evening. My name's Jennifer Brenner. I'm from the Twin Oaks section of Levittown. I'm self-employed. I want to say I certainly would not want to be in your shoes. Everyone either loves you or dislikes you at this point. I feel that letting these kids and their families make a decision if they feel comfortable wearing a mask is the way to go. My daughter has met a bunch of kids over the past 2 years since COVID has started. She's introduced herself. She has hugged people. Not once did I even think to say to a person, have you had it? Have you not? It's not my business. I trust in her God-given immune system. I trust that we take care of her, that she washes her hands, she takes vitamins, she lives a healthy lifestyle. That's the best we can do. Just as I put my child in a car and I make sure she's seatbelted every time. All I can do is just try my best. And if I trust in her immune system, I trust that not wearing a mask all the time is best for her. Sure, if we go to a doctor's office, we may have to put it on, but right now I'm going to let her make her own choices as well with her father and I, and we're comfortable in this, and we feel that this is the best choice. And if anyone's wanting to wear a mask, by all means, no one's going to have a problem with it. Like someone said, they comment and say, oh, I like your material on your mask. It's a fun accessory for some people, but not for others. And my daughter this year wore a face shield due to allergies and only had one person make any negative comment about it. So I think that we're on the right path. And I thank you all for your choices.
All righty. We're going to move on to board comment. Do any members of the board wish to make any public comment? Do you know something? Even sitting next to him. I forgot to call him first.
Thank you, Mrs. Bowen.
There you go. Exactly right.
A couple of comments.
You see that? It's written right here.
Couple of comments to the public comment. We did in Cabden on Wednesday morning briefly discuss the idea of grouping kids, masking, not masking. Those of you who know how the high school works, it wouldn't work. We'd need twice as much staff and twice as big a building for the most part. Middle school, probably similar issues. Elementary, not great, but theoretically maybe. The issue is the long term. There are class size limits, set number of rooms. Teachers, the break in who wants to and who doesn't want to would have to break perfectly. And then there'd be no movement from there, meaning if we changed our mind whether we wanted to wear a mask or not wear a mask, we'd be stuck in the same situation that we're trying to avoid now. So we'll still explore it, but it doesn't look like it's something that is something that's going to be easily done. And then asking parents to make that decision now without knowing, probably not as good as the timing could be. Having to wait to when you know the best leaves us no time to get it done. So we did explore it. We do explore your ideas. Anything above grade 5, probably not even possible. The others, maybe. So I'll leave it at that. And then someone asked about our ventilation bipolar ionization. I may not be the expert on it, but somebody up here may be. I will say that I know some major hospitals have it and some airports. If you Google bipolar ionization, there are great videos as to how this system drops the particles far quicker than they're supposed to be dropped, and that's the extent of my knowledge. Unless you guys will fill in there. All right, Mr. Parentano, that's all I have.
Thank you. This time, does any board members wish to make comment? Ms. Bowman, go right ahead.
I have a lot, so just bear with me. Many of you spoke to me on the phone this week. I got a lot of phone calls. I answered every single call from every parent that called me on my cell phone. Did not answer all your emails because I found that it's very hard to determine tone when you write an email. So I felt that this was an important topic enough that I would talk to you on the cell phone. Some of you are here tonight. If you guys had been here, our last board meeting was the battle to take the masks off. Now tonight's board meeting is the battle to keep the masks on. Either way, you need to understand it's a 50-50 split about. You're either going to hate us or you're going to love us. It's a very difficult situation. We are in a no-win situation with this. Know that I am watching it as an emergency responder. I take this COVID spread very seriously. I had to keep a whole fire department from getting COVID. We were working throughout the entire pandemic. I wasn't at home, out of work, teaching, online. I was managing a fire department amidst of a pandemic, and I kept my guys from getting COVID. I did that by wearing masks, washing hands, isolating, sending guys home for 14 days. I get it. The numbers have gone down significantly. As the numbers have gone down, so have my protocols at the fire department. I look at that when I come here. This is a very fluid situation. It changes every week. We looked at these numbers 3 weeks ago as presented to us by Dr. Damsker and Dr. McGee. And every year, this health and safety comes up. We have to vote on it by the end of July. This is not set in stone. As the situation changes, like this is a very fluid situation, we're going to have to look at this as a board and say, do we need to adopt different measures into our health and safety plan? We're not risking your children's health. We are looking at this on a week-to-week occurrence. So either way, we're in a no-win situation. And I really admire and appreciate, is the better word, those of you that recognize the position that we are in and that we are not toying with the health and safety of your children. We are trying to navigate through this uncharted territory during a pandemic. Nobody's ever done this before. There is no board before us that has had to make these decisions, that have to write plans like this. So you need to take that into account. We are not perfect. We are navigating through this situation as best as we can. And I appreciate your patience while we do that. The splitting of the classrooms, I'm going to tell you from an educator, elementary school is an absolute nightmare, and I'll tell you why. Because then MTSS, social emotional learning, small group instruction cannot take place effectively, and that will greatly affect the academic success of your children. Because now they're only going to be with this same group of kids for the entire school year and will not have the opportunity to go out into small group activities and small group instructions as they might need academically due to this COVID slide. So in my opinion, I don't even think that's a good option, but the cabinet might think otherwise. Outside of this topic, I got to bring up something very bad. And if I cry, bear with me. We have a missing member of our community. This to me is more important than anything we're talking about tonight with these masks. Casey Johnson, she is a counselor of Kids Club at Tawanka. She is a member of my community at Lower South. I know her parents well. She's missing, and we need your help. So I'm asking anybody that is going downtown, traveling in and out on the highways to please keep a lookout for her car. So it's Casey Johnson. She's been missing since July 10th. She's 5'3", brown hair, green eyes. She was last seen driving a silver 2016 Ford Focus, license plate number KSA 8807. Find the car, then we will get clues as to what has happened to Casey Johnson. So again, silver to 2016 Ford Focus, Pennsylvania license plate KSA 8807. And if anybody has any access to electronic signs, please shoot me an email so we can get her information up on any electronic signage. I don't care where the sign is. She could be anywhere. So thank you, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your summer.
Good evening. I wanted to thank all those who came out tonight on both sides of the issue. I appreciate you all. I know the rest of the people up here do as well. To the folks that would like to see their kids out of masks, I get it. I hate masks too. They suck. Plain and simple. I'm a teacher. I got to wear it. Where I'm going in the fall, I got to wear a mask. I hate it. Guess what? I could do that or I can lose my job, but I'd rather do it because I get to work with some of the greatest students out there. Okay? And I do it because it's my obligation for their safety, and I got to follow the rules. Same reason we had a mask mandate last year. We were following the rules. We all swore an oath to the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We're following what we have to do within reason. That said, I understand. I understand your need for freedom. I understand your kids who want to be able just to have a normal life. We all want a normal life. We all want that. We all want that. I want it too. I want it for my kids. For those people who came out with masks tonight, I get it. I get it. Miss Love, I get it. I'm listening. I'm listening. I get it. I understand. Some people, Mr. Donahue, I can't, okay. I get it. So this is serious. For those people who feel like they don't have a choice and their lives hang in the balance based upon what we do, I get it. I get it. It kind of stinks being up here having that kind of decision. But I wanted to explain at least my vote tonight, why I voted for the plan. I voted for the plan because August 17th, we're going to have a chance to revisit it. And in the interest of a deadline, I wanted to make sure that this district gets the money it rightfully deserves without having to dig into your pockets or into our reserves. That's it. I'm hopeful that we'll have even more information on the 17th where we can make a more informed decision. And the reason I asked the questions I did was to get the same response, and I believe Dr. McGee hopefully put some of your minds at ease. All I ask is that for those people who really care about this, and I know that there are plenty out that came out tonight, and there are plenty more that might be watching this, that should come out and voice their concerns, okay? Freedom of speech. Doesn't matter what side. This isn't a political thing. This is a public safety thing, and our kids are important. Now, my last kid graduated from Neshaminy, fortunately, but as long as I'm here on the school board, it's my obligation. Those kids, your kids are my kids too. I want them to be healthy. I want them to be safe. I get it. So I will make decisions based upon what I believe is going to be within the best interest and will protect the safety of your children. I'll speak only for myself on that. I'll let my fellow board members voice their opinions, but that's that. And it is my hope that we will have fresher information and we'll be able to make a more informed decision, just like we did last year. Last year wasn't easy either, and obviously we're going to have the same difficult choice to make. So I thank you all again.
Yeah, I'd like to say a couple of things also. I'd like to thank all of you who came out tonight. This is my almost fourth year on this board, and this was the most respectful, honest debate that I've witnessed in my 4 years here. And as an old social studies teacher, I appreciate that. I saw a lot of respect. I saw a lot of people listening, even though we were on opposite sides of this debate. And I think we can all say that hasn't happened very much in the past number of years. So I appreciate that. I'd like to say our whole social studies department head in this direction of free debate from K through 12 in an honest and respectful way, which I think we all witnessed here tonight. I'd also like to say that, we listened earlier, to a very detailed and excellent plan for learning loss. And the fact that we have to have a plan for learning loss says a whole lot about what COVID has done to the school district and to kids throughout this country. Fortunately, the government's giving us some money to help make up for this learning loss. and I think the plan, the health and safety plan that we have right now is really partially, at least, if not mostly, designed to help make up for that learning loss. And I think we are all in agreement, or mostly in agreement, that kids learn better face-to-face in a classroom, and we want to get back to that as quickly as possible. Personally, and I think I speak for pretty much, I'm pretty sure I speak for everybody on the board when I say that safety still comes first. And the fact that this plan is so flexible, and I think Dr. McGee has used the word several times in his emails, we can pivot. And we, as a board, as a school district in the past 18 months, we learned a whole lot about safety and how to educate kids and how to be flexible. And I really do believe if we have to pivot, and if things get worse with this the Delta variant, I think we can pivot very, very quickly. Maybe not on a dime, but pretty quickly. And I think we have a faculty and an administration that's prepared to do that. So that's why I voted for this plan too. The flexibility, and I think it gives us an opportunity to get our kids back in the room as quickly as possible and safely. So that's all.
I'd like to say that I voted for the plan because it is flexible, right? And we're going with the situation right now. I will say, as someone of a generation in which the last year and a half has been very scary, I want to make a point that although children may be uncomfortable wearing the masks, we're talking about life and death here. And so I'm sure that if the statistics go up, we will pivot. But I think that's when you talk about like whether your children want to come to school with the mask and I understand that, but believe me, safety first, please.
Good evening, all. I want to address a few things. The first thing I'd like to say, I heard a few times from the podium that our plan is no plan, and I do want to say that I take a bit of a issue with that. Dr. McGee, his administration, the cabinet staff have all worked very hard to come up with a plan that we can all abide by as much as any of us can under these circumstances. And I just want to be sure that they get their due credit for the work they put into this plan. As other members have pointed out, it's a flexible plan. It's not written in stone. We went full throttle when the COVID first hit. As we've worked with the CDC, Dr. Damsker from Bucks County Health, and all the other school districts, plans were modified. Modified in the goal to get our children back into school. Come fall, things may change yet again. Over the summer, things are changing. This, as I will repeat, is not written in stone. It can change, and we will, as Dave said, pivot and do our best. But the goal is to keep our children in school. And none of us know what that's going to look like. But we have to have some plan going forward, and that is what we have on board. And I want to thank Dr. McGee and, again, the administration and staff. I want to thank them for coming up with the Lost Education Learning Loss Mitigation Plan, another incredibly important aspect that has gotten lost here. Literally lost. There are children who have fallen through the cracks. We must catch them before they get too far behind. That's what this goal, what this plan of action is, to catch them before it gets too far out of hand. Also, on that note, I want to point out to our tech school students and families that Dr. Leon Paskey released a letter today outlining the Bucks County Technical High School's health and safety plan moving forward. It's very similar to what we are doing here. It's also a plan that can be changed on a dime if need be. But I just want to draw attention to that, check your emails that went out late this afternoon, and I'm sure it'll be up on Facebook or other social media pretty soon. A question was brought up about ventilation, more of the bipolar ionization. Again, I'm not an expert at it, but it is my forte in mechanical skills. I work with facilities, mechanical systems, and I won't put our new facility man on the spot just yet. The idea, what we went with is air handling systems have filters. You all have them in your home if you have forced warm air. They are all numbered. It's called a MERV number. Very simple without getting into detail. The lower the number, the less effective. The higher the number, the more effective it is, the more tightly it's woven. There came a point when we first started hitting this, the COVID and our air systems, we upped our filter efficiency by putting in higher MERV numbers in our air handling system. The problem with that is that they're not all designed to handle that. You're increasing the drag on the whole system. The fan motors work harder, the airflow slows down, the air goes slower across coils. They're not designed. They're designed a certain way to take their enthalpy of the air out. So if you slow that down, they start to freeze up. That causes issues. So that can't go on forever. Matter of fact, we had to replace a number of our motors because they were overworked. They overheated and burned out because they had higher efficiency filters in than they were designed for. The UV bipolar ionization, the ultraviolet aspect of that is more of a surface contact. If you've gone into some dairies or delis, food service places, you may see up in the corner a blue light. That's your ultraviolet light. The idea of that is it's a disinfectant. It's like concentrated sunlight. I think we all kind of understand that. Putting it in the airstream is helpful. It's not all of the answer. The idea of the bipolar ionization is you're creating a charged particle of the air so that it becomes more, I'm trying to think of what you all, like static electricity, only up that a bit so that they attract each other. Molecules of dirt start to cling to each other. As they're coming through the airstream, they get bigger, they get heavier. That means the filter that you put in that stream is more effective because now it's a bigger, instead of having a grain of sand, now you've got a pebble that it can catch. That makes the need to go to the higher MERV levels unnecessary. That's one of the reasons we went with that. The air changes, that can go anywhere from 4 to 12. That has to do with the volume of the room. How many times an hour does that entire air, you can say, was changed out? That also is involved with how much outside air you bring in. All of those mitigations that we've worked on, part of our facilities, did studies of it, went into the buildings, and I'm just trying to point out that we're on top of that. And our buildings are probably in better condition than they've been in probably years. So hopefully, I know I'm not explaining that entirely well because a lot of it's mechanicals, a lot of it's we're working on it. So we're on top of that. Leaving that away, I just want to thank Mr. Cochran, Ms. Hope, and Mr. Maloney for coming aboard. I know you'll be welcome members of the Neshaminy community, and my personal welcome to you. Mr. Maloney, is there anything you might want to add to what I said there since I got kind of stalled? All that made sense to you?
With that, it allows you to put It's an electronic charge to the molecules in the air and has that droplet hit the floor a lot faster. If bipolar ionization has the ability to be tested, maintenance can go around and test each unit to ensure that that charge is there. That has to be put on a preventive maintenance program, and that will be when I come on board to see where we are. Depending on the tonnage of the unit, there are different size units that go into each duct. So if you have a small unit for a classroom, it might have something the size of a toaster. You have one of the big rooftop units, it's much bigger. It's, maybe 2 by 2 by 2 to put out that charge that's needed. It's the most efficient way to scrub the air, to clean the air. As John mentioned, going to a higher MERV filter, it causes so many other problems. Now you're having freezing of coils. Your air conditioner doesn't work. You might have that issue at home sometimes. Your air conditioner doesn't work. Why? Maybe it's low on Freon. Maybe it's the wrong filter. You have to ensure that you're doing the proper preventive maintenance on your units to ensure that you're going to get the most efficient use of that piece of equipment. They last a lot longer. It's much more creature comfort for the students, for the teachers, for the learning ability, all around. But I think, John, you mentioned it very well. 10,000-foot view, that's what it does.
Hold on a second. Hold on. This after the meeting, if you want to ask, that's fine. In this forum right now, we can't get into that.
I felt I lost my train of thought on that. It happens when you're talking to the public.
Right.
You're thinking, and suddenly your brain clicks off. So
After the meeting, if you want to ask Mr. Maloney a question, that'll be fine. We just want to finish up here. First, I want to thank everybody from the public that came out and spoke. As David mentioned, the way the public conducted themselves, this is the way you get across to the board. I know when people come out, sometimes you're very passionate, sometimes you're overly passionate, and the yelling, the screaming, the banging on the podium, that doesn't get your point across. But tonight, we had the type of debates that we always like to have. And one of the reasons why I wanted to return to this boardroom, because for lack of a better word, the more intimate setting that's in this boardroom actually fosters better communication than when you're in that big auditorium and you're so far away from the board and we're up there and we can't see each other, we're facing each other's backs. I mean, this is one of the reasons we wanted to come back to this room, is because it allows us to interface with you better and interact with you better. So I'm very thankful that we're in this setting. I'm very thankful for the way public presented themselves tonight. I can't say anything more than what everybody else has always said. I understand it's tough. Everybody's got their position. Please have a little bit of faith in us. As Adam mentioned, all the kids we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't want the best for the kids. But we have to find something that services 9,500 children, and that makes it difficult sometimes. So, but I want you to understand, we will follow the science as we did last year, as we will do this year. We will. I promise you that. Mr. McGinley came up to the podium and spoke about one of his members, one of our employees, and I know we've stated this a couple times before last year, many times, but the reason why Neshaminy had one of the most successful programs last year was because our certified teaching staff and our support staff went above and beyond. They really, it was one team. Everybody was on the same plan to make sure we do the best we can for the kids. And we had support staff members that we changed some of their days so they could help do recess, so we could give the kids recess. Teachers in the learning protocols, they're really teaching 2 classes at once. Teaching at home class, they're teaching the class that was in there. Even though we need these learning loss mitigations, but under the circumstances of how it was last year, it was really difficult to provide what we considered a respectable level that Neshaminy's known for and Neshaminy's expected to deliver. And our staff stepped up and with the administration, the amount of hours that they put in was unbelievable, last year. So I just want the public to know, while, we make up the decisions up here, if we don't have the people in the field that are willing to step up and do it, it couldn't get done. So, just want to take that opportunity to let them know how appreciative the board's been of how the Neshaminy family took it upon themselves to make sure these kids get the best they could under those circumstances. So with that, I again welcome our 3 new hires there. Can't wait to see you all hit the road running. And with that, we'll end this meeting. It's late. I know everybody wants to get home. I'd like a motion to adjourn. Second by Ms. Hollenbach.